Welcome back, or welcome if you're just joining us. It's the France 24 debate, and we're looking at Recep Tayyep Erdogan taking on critics, be they abroad or at home. The president of Turkey, we're doing so in the company of the former Washington correspondent for daily newspaper Cumhuriyet, Ilan Tanir, who joins us from the U.S. Capitol, from Ankara. Heshyar Osoy, member of parliament for the same HDP party as two co-mayors of Diyarbakir who've been arrested. Yunus Paksoy, reporter for the daily Sabah newspaper, who joins us from Istanbul, and the University of Essen's Kader Konur, who is with us from Germany. Welcome back to all of you. We were saying at the outset, 13 staff members at Cumhuriyet, one of the nation's oldest and most established newspapers, detained. Among them, the editor-in-chief, Murat Sambuku, columnists, and a cartoonist. Arrests denounced by Turkey's opposition.
What we're witnessing is the government using the coup as an opportunity to silence intellectuals and heap pressure on the media as well as civil society.
Every day we are facing a new level of pressure, coordinated by the AKP, to ensure that there is no opposition left in Turkey.
Now, we don't have formal charges yet, but Yunus Paksoy, we have heard statements from prosecutors tying Cumhuriyet to the Gulenist movement, which is accused of being behind the coup plot and of supporting insurgents from the PKK. What's your reaction to that?
I mean, we should all say that I think also some columnists from the Cumhuriyet Daily said that the policy of Cumhuriyet has changed to a great extent for the past 2 years after Can Dündar came into power. Everyone said that, you know, Kemalists, so to speak, or like nationalists, neo-nationalists were fired from the Daily, and the influence of FETÖ, commonly referred to as FETÖ, I mean the Gülen movement, you know, had its influence in the Daily, and everyone saw this. And Mustafa Balbay, a former columnist of Cumhuriyet Daily, tweeted on his official Twitter account that, you know, FETÖ, people affiliated with FETÖ can write in this daily. People affiliated with the PKK can write this in this daily, but I cannot. Why? He said. You know, there was this big policy change in the publication of this daily. So we should ask this question: what happened? What changed after Can Dündar came into power? You know, we see this big change, and the headlines, you know, imply a very harsh anti-government attitude. So this changed, and we should say that this daily became affiliated with FETÖ and the PKK. I mean, we can see that easily.
Became affiliated. Ilan Tanir, your reaction?
Oh my God.
My reaction is I am just laughing here. It is just amazing to hear a journalist is defending 13 journalists and media staff are in jail, and it has been 2 days now.
It's an investigation.
13 people,
it's an ongoing
including
editor.
Yes, of course. It is editor-in-chief Murat Sabuncu, who is a great guy, and 12 other journalists right now have been sitting in jails. They have incommunicado. They cannot even see their lawyers. They don't even know what they're accused of. You just heard the most eloquent accusation that somehow these people are affiliated with FETÖ. You can right now affiliate with anyone, any dissident, any opposition figures, any newspapers with the FETÖ, with these very ambiguous, laughable accusations. And we know that last 3 months since the coup attempt, a failed coup attempt, there are 170 media organizations shut down. Just a couple days ago, 15 Kurdish media organizations shut down.
No,
there are
not
over
Kurdish,
150.
Pro-PKK. Pro-PKK.
Oh. Can I jump in at one point?
Heshiar Osoy.
I've been here. Yeah, please. Okay. So, I mean, about Cumhuriyet, I mean, I'm really, I feel ashamed here. Seriously. I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, I can't really talk now. A journalist defending this and calling anybody critical of the government a terrorist, it is a shame. Let me say this. Let's accept for 1 minute that Cumhuriyet, Özgür Gündem, all those newspapers, they are terrorists. What about the Kurdish Zarok cartoon TV? You know what is the accusation? The accusation is that Zarok TV, mainly Mickey Mouse speaking Kurdish, right? Is just, you know, translating cartoons into Kurdish for Kurdish children. It was banned, and the accusation is that this TV, these cartoons, were sending subliminal messages to Kurdish children so that in the future they would be terrorists. It is that absurd. Excuse me?
May I add another absurd example to this? We have, for example, Candan Badim, a Marxist, obviously atheist historian in Tunceli, who was taken into police custody because he had a book by Fethullah Gülen in his office. And of course he had to be released, but he lost his job because he was one of the signees of the Academics for Peace petition from January 2016 and has been charged with supporting terrorism as everybody else who has asked for peace in this simple petition in January. There's a continuity of persecution in Turkey to be seen by Erdogan's government that has radicalized this year, especially after the peace petition that tried to make aware the public of what was going on in the mostly by Kurds populated area in Anatolia. The result of that is that more than half of the people who signed the petition, more than 500 people had to face disciplinary investigation. More than 100 have lost their jobs. Many had to come into exile, and they might not call it exile yet, but many have left the country and are now seeking for academic positions elsewhere. The fact is that anybody can be charged with supporting terrorism or being a Gülenci at the moment. It's completely arbitrary. There's not the lawsuits are not done according to the rights and the European Union agreements that Turkey has signed a long time ago. For example,
I was going to say, go ahead.
Another example is that Erdogan has asked already in July, shortly after the coup attempt, all the deans in Turkey, including the private universities, to retreat from their positions to which he had no right. The deans had to follow his order. Some of the deans who have been reinstated in their positions are the supporters of the AKP government, including one of the university presidents who actually lost her positions was the first woman who wore a headscarf and became a university president I think in Diyarbakir, and she even lost her job. And it's not really clear what her connection to Kurdish terrorism or the Fethullah Gülen movement could be. It is completely arbitrary. And against this kind of arbitrary authoritarianism, it is very important that we here in Europe make a stand and express.
Right, let's pick up on that. Let's pick up on that.
Like
The German government calls the shutdown at Cumhuriyet highly alarming. Let's listen to Chancellor Angela Merkel.
First, concerning Turkey, it is highly alarming to me and to the entire government that freedom of the press and opinion is again and again being restricted. The Cumhuriyet arrests are just the latest example of this already very sad development. We have very serious doubts that this falls under the principles of a state of law.
Und wir haben hier sehr große Zweifel, dass das den rechtsstaatlichen Prinzipien entspricht.
All right, she's not likely to get very far with that statement. Let's listen to the Turkish Prime Minister speaking Tuesday to rank and file of the ruling AK party.
bugün de kalkmış Avrupa Parlamentosu'nda.
Today, somebody from the European Parliament says the detention of journalists from that newspaper is a red line.
Kardeşim, senin çizgine mizgine biz bakmayız.
Brother, we don't care about your red line. It's the people who draw the red line. What importance does your line have?
Yunus Pakso, is that true that Ankara doesn't care what Europe thinks?
I mean, the European Parliament was saying just like 3 or 4 months ago that Turkey should or has to change its terror laws. And after that, a coup attempt, happened here in Turkey. The parliament was bombed. More than 250 people were killed. And like more than 2,000 people were wounded. And the European Parliament went on to say that Turkey has to change its terror laws. And Turkey fights ISIS. Turkey fights FETÖ. Turkey fights PKK. Turkey fights DHKPC. And the European Parliament says that Turkey still has to change its terror law. And when this happens, and I mean, Prime Minister looks at the situation and says, I mean, we shouldn't actually care about what the European Parliament says, because the European Parliament does not really care about Turkey's, sensitive issues like terrorist organizations. Turkey fights more than 4 or 5 terrorist organizations at the same time. And Turkey is still trying to do something. I mean, this FETÖ issue is a serious thing. I mean, the HDP MP said shortly ago that, these newspapers and these channels are shut down because, they speak Kurdish or something like that. It's not the thing. They are glorifying PKK terror. His party and these newspapers are heavily linked to the PKK, and they glorify PKK terror. And if you're glorifying terrorist organizations, it's a crime in every country in this world.
Glorifying the PKK or just simply Kurdish and in the opposition?
I mean, we shouldn't really say that pro-Kurdish or they're just glorifying Kurdish rights. How can they be, defending Kurdish rights? The PKK kills its own people. I mean, the PKK does the most harm to Kurds. I mean, Kurds say that enough with this PKK terror, we don't want the PKK. But still, the HDP fails to condemn PKK terror. I mean, in this case, Kurds say that I'm in favor of Erdogan or his party. That's the case.
All right, let me ask Heshiyar Osoy on this. Let me ask Heshiyar Osoy. First of all, Heshiyar, do you condemn the PKK insurgency, and what's your reaction? Just yes, no, do you condemn it?
Please. Please. I mean, here you are asking the question, but we are problematizing an issue. I'm an anthropologist, and I study sociology of knowledge. Okay, so please don't set the terms of the debate here. Before joining the HDP, I was teaching at the University of Michigan. I'm a political sociologist. I have never been into any kind of violent action whatsoever. Most of the people who are doing politics in HDP are either coming from the human rights movement or they are professors of constitutional law.
Can you please say that I condemn the PKK and PKK terror?
No, here. Who are you to put me in this situation and try to somehow?
You cannot even condemn the PKK or PKK terror.
Wait.
You cannot even condemn it.
One at a time. Heshiyar Osoy.
Excuse me. I mean, he is interrupting. I didn't interrupt. He's very disrespectful. Let me just clarify something here. The question about the PKK and HDP, that is the police question, right? That is the police question. We, as the HDP, I am talking about the HDP, right? According to the Turkish constitution, let me clarify, nobody is forced to express his ideas. Okay, so HDP is a political party established according to the Turkish law, according to the constitution, and we ran in the elections and we got democratically elected. 80 people, now we are 59 in the parliament. If there is an issue with the HDP, then the court process, the due process should conclude it. I had 2 court cases against me. One is insulting the president. You know why? Because I said that we are 80 million people in this country and we couldn't satisfy the ambitions of Mr. President Erdogan. And this is insulting the president and terror propaganda. This is the accusation. Second, I was physically attacked by a police and who also insulted me in front of 50 people but there is a court case against me now saying that I insulted the police officer and I did terrorist propaganda. I don't know, so many things, dividing the country, separating this. So here is the issue. Now in Turkey, we have a period like 1930s Germany, 1950s United States. There is McCarthyism here. Hitler is on the rise here, I promise you. And they are using
Definitely that. If the HDP is in parliament, you cannot talk about Germany of 1930s.
It is. Hundreds of thousands of people are dismissed, and they don't know about the accusation. So here is the problem. So these people who were dismissed, who are in prison, don't know what is the accusation, because all the files, all the cases are secret. They say, we can't provide you with information. The lawyers now are denied access to the people for up to 6 months. You know what that means? There is no rule of law. There is no due process. There is no constitutional rule. There is no separation of powers in this country. Overnight, 3,000 judges and prosecutors were dismissed. Overnight, for God's sake. And now you are here to talk about whether HDP is a genuinely democratic force. My friend, I'm telling you very clearly, I am a deputy of the HDP. It's vice co-chair. I was democratically elected. I am coming from academia. I have never been into any kind of illegal organization. If there is anything against me or my friends, you need to show some evidence. One evidence. Let me clarify.
I know. We just want you to answer very clear questions.
Just one evidence,
please. Add to this? Can I just finish this in order to support?
This terrorism talk is very important. So it is here with me. I can show it to you. The relationship between HDP and PKK, the link terrorizing us, is mainly about the case of Faisal Sarıyıldız, the deputy of Şırnak, and the president of the country, prime minister of the country, the minister of foreign affairs, all of them, they lied to the public and to the international community that Mr. Faisal Sarıyıldız was carrying weapons to the PKK. That is how our immunities were lifted in this country. Okay, it's Faisal Sarıyıldız.
Mr. François, you asked the question, there's still no answer.
Just two more sentences.
I'm waiting for that answer. Just condemn the PKK terror.
Two more sentences. Two more sentences here. You know what the
HDP deputies attended the funeral ceremonies of terrorists. What do you say about that?
Give me just three sentences. The indictment about Mr. Faisal Sarıyıldız, it is here, I can show it to you. It reads like this: despite the fact that, this is the prosecutor saying, despite the fact that we couldn't find any evidence linking Mr. Faisal Sarıyıldız to the transfer of weapons to some terrorist organization, this is the statement of the prosecution, still we do demand the lifting of his immunity. Even the prosecution is saying there is no link between the transfer of weapons and our Faisal Sarıyıldız, our deputy of Şırnak, and Mr. President, Prime Minister.
May I say something? May I have a say?
Lying to the international public that the HDP is regularly carrying weapons. For God's sake, these are lies. And you can't simply maintain this situation by simply lying. Okay?
All right, Yunus Paksoy, very briefly.
May I say something? Okay, very briefly. Okay, a deputy in Turkish parliament fails to condemn a terrorist organization that has killed tens of thousands of people.
I mean,
and there were deputies, there were HDP deputies. I'm sorry. There were many HDP deputies that attended the funeral ceremonies of terrorists, PKK terrorists. Why do you attend? Can you think about a British? Can you think about the British MP attending the funeral ceremonies of ISIS terrorists? Or, I mean, American deputies. Can you think about it? Why do you attend the funeral ceremonies of PKK terrorists? Just answer this. Condemn the PKK terror.
Kader Konur.
That is not a crime. That's not a crime in the country.
I think this kind of debate is a dead end. Thank you for giving me a possibility to speak, because if we think about the more than 10,000 teachers, mostly Kurdish teachers, who lost their job at the beginning of this school year and the consequences of them being dismissed in September, then we can see how far-reaching the authoritarian regime really is, and that the parallel to 1933 and to the McCarthy era needs to be made in order to see very, very clearly how fast Erdogan, perhaps even faster than Hitler in 1933, is moving. The children who have a right to education are being denied this right because their teachers are not able to teach them anymore. Among these more than 10,000 teachers are a number of, if not most of the Kurdish writers in Turkey right now who have made a living by teaching children. What we see is a silencing of the educated class and a general attack on education, because education enables people to articulate a criticism of the government. This is why Erdogan is so harshly going against anybody in these positions in schools, at universities, at funding institutions, and has left basically no way to breathe. The academics who have lost their jobs since January and are continuing to lose their jobs are now trying to find alternative ways of articulating their criticism or even continue to teach. They call themselves, for example, we should also talk about what is really happening positively at the moment.
Kader Kanur, unfortunately, we're out of time.
May I add a couple sentences from Washington, D.C.?
We would need another hour, unfortunately, to be able to broach all the topics. Kader Kanur, I want to thank you. One sentence from Ilan Tanir in Washington.
Thank you. And what is the AKP government, Erdogan's government, doing to solve the Kurdish issue? Right now, Turkish security forces are going after democratically elected Kurdish politicians. They are going after arresting people, co-mayors who got 55% of the vote and taking over with the government trustees. And this is not solving any problem. It is just demonizing the elected people.
Ilan Tanir, I want to thank you for joining us from Washington. I want to thank Yunus Paksoy in Istanbul and Hishyar also in Ankara. Stay with us. Our Media Watch segment is next. And we say hello to James Creedon.
Hi, François. So let's take a look at how this story is playing out in the media around the world. We're starting with the editorial of the Washington Post. A cult of personality dashes Turkey's democratic dreams. And what they say is, a little more than a decade ago, Turkey appeared to be an emerging democracy with vibrant civil society and with somewhat independent media. No longer, we're heading towards a strongman cult of personality and the abandonment of democracy, an authoritarianism that is centred on Erdogan's personal power, replacing critical media with mouthpiece organs, suffocating independent civil society. That's the reading that you're getting in a lot of the Western media, I suppose, vis-a-vis what has happened since Monday in the latest chapter of this purge, if you like. In Turkey, the combat of Erdogan against the press has no limits anymore. Now, who you see there photographed in this article is a journalist, Kadri Gürsel. He's one of the journalists for Cumhuriyet who was imprisoned. You can see that there's a tweet here from yesterday's edition of the newspaper showing the empty space where his column usually would appear. Also in that article, there is a quote from him, and I suppose it's pretty emblematic, saying, "For me, a page in our history has turned, the history of Turkey, where the principles of 1923, which was secularism, modern Turkey, Western-orientated, those principles of progress, science, reason, equality of the sexes, and secularism, harmonizing with the Western model, that is now a thing of the past." He's actually written a book in French called Turkey Year Zero, and it was sort of prophetic. It was released earlier this year before the purge that he has been a victim of now, but of course it came to be something that he knows very personally indeed. For Reporters Without Borders, they've added Erdogan to their list of predators of press freedom, along with Kim Jong-un, Bashar al-Assad and others. You also have a lot of others, organisations such as Amnesty International drawing attention to it. But I suppose the whole question is, how will politicians respond? How will Europe respond? We saw today Angela Merkel's very strong words calling this highly alarming. But you do have others, for example, We Move Europe or pro-European movements saying that Europe, the EU, has to be stronger, I suppose, in reinforcing the notions of democracy and human rights when they are being violated. The New York Times, quick look at what they're saying. Can Turkey's democracy survive President Erdogan? And in that article, they say the US and Europe are horrified that Mr. Erdogan has strayed so completely from the track he was on when he first came to power. But it is critical, it remains a critical NATO ally, and there's no really easy way for the West to keep Mr. Erdogan in the tent while making clear to him that his actions are unacceptable. Le Monde basically says Erdogan is slipping further and further away from Europe. Just one or two final comments. A huge amount of online trolling as well, targeting female journalists in particular, which is a much more subtle form of intimidation. The Guardian pointing to that. And we'll finish with this cartoon. I suppose pictures can sometimes speak 1,000 words.
All right. Many thanks for that. James
Thanks,
Creedon, I guess broaching the topic for the next debate on Turkey, how Europe handles it all.
Indeed, indeed.
Stay with us. There's more news to come. Thank you for joining us here in the France 24 debate.